Yes, I love their offseason or their free agency period as well. This was great. Can I just take over? Can I talk about them?
Of all the teams yesterday, who do you think did the best job at the start of free agency?
The Bulls. The Bulls, hands down.
Oh, wow.
No, here's why. I think it was the level of creativity in how they managed to get Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. So one of the things was, we didn't really know whether the Bulls would operate as an over-the-cap team or a below-the-cap team because they could go in either direction. Most anticipated, myself included, that they would go under the cap in order to also renegotiate and extend with Zach LaVine. Now that is off the table because they basically decided, you know what, let's convince him to stay next year by amping up on the talent. And what they did was so impressive to me in terms of how they finagled everything. They did the sign and trade with New Orleans for Lonzo Ball, where they gave up virtually nothing, like Tomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, and a second rounder. And here's what's really interesting for me. It's Daniel Theis signed with the Houston Rockets. And the Bulls and Rockets worked out a sign and trade, so they get a traded player exception in. Now, depending on what that number is, and I do believe it's $9 million or so, that might actually be enough for the contract of Alex Caruso. So I'm not really sure if the Bulls are going this direction, but just the fact that they've opened up for that possibility that they could actually take on Alex Caruso in a sign and trade and absorb him into that TPE, that opens the door, Bryan, for them to have their non-tax MLE wide open, essentially building themselves two non-tax MLEs on the same year. And with all that in mind, they still have restricted free agent Lowry Markkanen on the books who they can swing to somewhere else. They still have Thaddeus Young on the books who they can swing somewhere else. I mean, they kept a lot of their assets around that they can move in later deals, which I personally didn't anticipate. So the Bulls got a haul. They got two guards that are going to help them out immediately, and they secured all their flexibility moving forward. So yeah, when it comes to cap minutia, when it comes to talent acquisition, when it comes to just the approach to free agency, the Bulls are winners here, big time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they track the order of operations there, because can they have Markkanen once they pull off the Caruso and Ball? Still, do they still have enough room to keep his cap hold on the books as well, or do they have to renounce him to bring those two guys in?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty close at this point. Given his cap hold is $20 million, they may have to finagle a couple things here and there. It wouldn't surprise me if push comes to shove and it is tight that they waive and stretch Al-Farouq Amino, which would give them a little bit more breathing room. So they just have options here.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. The creativity they showed cap-wise was super encouraging, especially that's just the hallmark of a good front office. If you can manipulate, or give yourself at least the optionality. We'll talk about Dallas in a little bit. They've done that as well, I believe. It bodes well that you have guys in your front office who know how to do this kind of thing, because these are we always talk about wins on the margins. These are the types of wins on the margins, like turning Theis into a TPE instead of just, letting him walk to Houston. That's, as you said, if it gives them effectively a second MLE, that's huge. And, the price they paid for Lonzo, 4 years, $85 million, I think that's right in line with what his estimated value would have been. Only having to send back Satoransky, Temple, and a second round pick is amazing. We'll talk about the Pelicans when we get to teams that we hate what they're doing, because I don't understand why wouldn't you just match that contract? It's not an exorbitant price, and that is a very disappointing return if you're the Pelicans. I can't imagine Zion Williamson is thrilled seeing Lonzo walk out and only getting those guys back, right?
Right. I mean, but look, when you have a chance to pay up a first-round draft pick to sign Devontae Graham, you gotta do it.
And thankfully I read that tweet wrong at first, because I thought they said 3-year $47 million instead of 4. 4-year $47 is a reasonable price for Devontae Graham. 3-year $47, if you paid $16 million almost for Devontae Graham and you weren't willing to go 21 for Lonzo. I did just look up too on ProfitX. Lonzo's 3-year projection is 65 million. 1 year is 21.8. So the Bulls basically nailed his evaluation, or at least based on this. So yeah, I think the Bulls had a great day, and we'll see again how they arrange things. If they can pull off a market and sign and trade as well, that will be interesting. But I think you can now have Kobe White, Lonzo, Zach LaVine, Caruso. You could do 3 guard lineups with those guys, and that's interesting. You still have Pat Williams, you still have Thad, you have Vooch. That's a pretty solid 7-man core right there, right?
Yeah. And you still need a wing, and you have Troy Brown Jr. there, obviously, but that's not going to be enough. So I anticipate the Bulls are going to go after DeMar DeRozan. Because they have been rumored to, depending on what DeMar is looking for. I have to assume that the next 48 hours they are in conversations with DeMar, trying to figure out, what do you want? How can we make that happen? Maybe it's a double sign and trade with Lowry Markkanen in some capacity again. So because of the sign and trades, the Bulls will be hard capped. They can't get past the $143 million apron. So there's definitely some limitations there to how they get to it, but I think they can make something work.
Yeah, they're not even close to the apron right now, right?
I haven't seen the latest updates. Again, I fell asleep at 5 a.m.
I can't imagine the apron will be a real consideration or a real concern for them. So
no, because their top 3 guys are essentially collectively earning $60 million.
Yeah,
which is a great price for your 3 best players, by the way.
Right, and then as you said, if they really got into trouble, they could waive and stretch Aminu, so that I think they're fine on that front. And yeah, I mean, if they pull off, there was some speculation about a DeMar DeRozan, Lowry Markkanen double sign and trade, which would be really interesting. So we'll see. I guess the first order of business would probably be, God, I can't even think through it. The Tice sign and trade goes through first, and then you bring in Caruso on the trade exception, then you bring in Lonzo. You can keep Markkanen's cap hold on the books, so you're still operating as an over-the-cap team. It's going to be a mess, but that's why they have guys in the front office whose job it is to do nothing but this stuff. But
well, and when you call into the league, apparently, the league can help you. When you call into the NBA, nice. Yeah, I read that a couple of years ago. So when you walk through the scenarios with the league, you can actually ask them, so this is our thinking, is this legal? And they'll go, well, maybe not, you may need to tweak it. So it will have to go through league approval. Of course, they have these when it's a trade with Lonzo, for example, they will ask, so do you have the money for it right now? What is your order of business? So it's a whole schematic thing that's really interesting. This league, man, it is tailored well for these kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, and again, these are the types of things that if you can figure out ways to exploit it, if they really do get effectively an extra $10 million, $9.5 million salary slot just because they were smart enough to tailor these moves in the correct order, that bodes very well. And, that, especially with LaVine, as you said, the question was, are they going to operate under the cap, over the cap? Are they going to try to renegotiate and extend LaVine? LaVine came out Monday and was talking about, he just wants his respect and whether he's going to get an extension now or next summer. And he said, we'll see what happens with the rest of free agency. If I'm Zach LaVine, seeing how these moves went down, I have much more confidence in the Bulls front office. Yep. And I think, I'm not saying he's a lock to re-sign there, but I think what happened yesterday drastically increased the odds of Zach LaVine re-signing in Chicago next summer.
Absolutely. And if they get DeMar DeRozan too, then I would be shocked if he left.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked out well because I think it was Casey Johnson and Jake Fisher at Bleacher Report had been mentioning Derrick Rose as a possible target for the Bulls. I think Casey said he was their top priority other than Lonzo, and then the Knicks re-signed him 3 years, $43 million. So they pivoted to Caruso.
Correct.
And I like the Caruso deal so much more than I do Rose.
And you and I nailed the Caruso value, I want to say a month or two ago. Because we were talking about how much is Alex Caruso going to get in free agency, and you and I were like, non-tax MLE? Yeah, that seems about right. There we go. That's what he got.
Yeah, and I will say we'll talk about this in a minute with the Heat as well, but I know a lot of Lakers fans are very mad right now about letting Caruso go because they had bird rights on him. There's no reason they couldn't have matched that contract. Not that he was an unrestricted free agent, but they could have offered him the same amount of money. They could have offered him more money. But someone from The Athletic, I don't remember who, I think it might have been Sam Amick, reported, Caruso gets this offer from the Bulls. He goes back to the Lakers and says, here's what it is. I think he wanted to give them a chance to match, and they didn't even bother with the counter. So it's not a great look from the Lakers, given they can't replace him. Him leaving, they still just only have their taxpayer MLE. They've added some cheap guys for depth, but losing Caruso in that fashion it's a blow for them. So it's kudos to the Bulls. This is like the first time I think we can say that since the entire time we've been doing this podcast.
Yeah. No, this is a breath of fresh air. It really is. This is night and day from what GarPax could ever think of. And in regards to the Lakers, Bryan, I think they're going to need the non-tax MLE money to just buy oxygen tanks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's only the tax MLE, so they're going to have to be stingy. Right. Yeah, they're going to have to be selective with who they... AD doesn't need it. He just needs like a cryogenic tank for all the other injuries he's going to pick up.
But it's only him and Taylor Horton Tucker under the age of 30 right now, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, probably. That makes sense.
Something along those lines, at least. God, it is. We'll get to the Lakers.
Yeah. Well, speaking about old teams, let's go to the Miami Heat, because they would be my pick for the team that cleaned up the most yesterday. With all due respect to the Bulls, who I think did do a great job, and there were a couple other teams that did a great job as well.
Right.
The Kyle Lowry sign and trade stuff really started to pick up steam on Sunday, and I understand why Bucks fans are upset, given that they lost a draft pick for Bogdanovic, where like Kyle Lowry, within the first minute of free agency, announces he's going to the Heat. Like, okay, yeah, sure, there wasn't tampering there. But they pick up Dragic's option on Sunday, which is all but confirming that this Lowry deal was going down as reported. So they end up sending Dragic and Precious Achiuwa to the Toronto Raptors, signed Kyle Lowry, I believe it was 3 years, up to $90 million. Re-signed Duncan Robinson, 5 years, $90 million. Re-signed Dwayne Dedmon and a couple other depth guys. I think Max Strus is coming back. The big surprise was PJ Tucker at 2 years and $15 million. And much like with the Lakers, I know Bucks fans are upset right now because the Bucks had bird rights on Tucker, and they said that was part of their calculus for acquiring him at the trade deadline. We can go over the cap to re-sign him. We knew we were going to be in the luxury tax. So they didn't. They ended up not re-signing him, and it sounded like that came as a surprise to Tucker based on his Instagram post after his deal got announced. But what do you think of this new look Heat team? Do you think they are now, do all of these moves in conjunction with one another? Does that put them into the Bucks and Nets tier of title contenders in the East?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think I don't think they're at the Bucks level. I don't think so. I think they're a small tier below. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that there's no chance in hell that they won't make the finals, because as we know, a whole season has its ups and downs. You can find the stride at the right time. Like everything is doable, but I think just in terms of talent, I do think Milwaukee has more of it. But also I will say this. Like, we're looking at the upgrades and we're looking at the extension and all of that. I think the bigger question for me moving forward with the Heat is the evolution of Bam Adebayo. I think the addition of Kyle Lowry, of course, important. That's a major thing. I don't really care about the PJ Tucker acquisition. I think, you know how I feel about PJ Tucker. I like him, but I think he's overpaid. I think defense is being overvalued in this case. When I saw that contract, I was blown away. It feels like a Rajon Rondo contract like last year, where I just I think that's an overpay. And I like Tucker. I don't have a problem with him. I just think that level of compensation is utterly ridiculous. What I think is you're going to see Jimmy Butler play a different role now that Kyle's there. He will not have to be as much on the ball, and when he is, they finally will have someone like Kyle who can spot up around the three. Like hell, he can even hit deep threes, and he'll be a very high volume 3-point shooter who can help space the floor. That's going to help, but all of them are extremely old at this point, outside of Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson. So you wonder what happens if you have this series of nagging injuries. What happens if Kyle misses 20 games? What if Jimmy misses 20? What if that is in extension of each other, so they don't play together for like 35 games? What does that do moving into the playoffs? Now, if they're all healthy and productive, cool. Then I could see them actually, over the course of the year, raising themselves up to maybe reaching Brooklyn and Milwaukee level, just in terms of their chemistry, cohesiveness, the Heat culture and all that. But just in terms of raw talent, I think they're just a step down so far. But hell, I might be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that both the Heat and the Celtics, we haven't recorded, I don't think, since this Josh Richardson trade went down. They both pivoted into like prioritizing defense over offense, it seems, which, you know, given how a lot of the playoffs shook out, especially with the Suns just going nuclear for most of their run to the finals, it seemed like teams were just going to go all in on offense. But now we're seeing, you know, the Celtics with their acquisition of Josh Richardson, now they can go, at least for now, we'll see what happens with Marcus Smart, but they're basically switchable 1 through 4. And, you know, the Heat now with Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Tucker, and Adebayo, they're just going to be the most annoying team to play against.
Right.
Like, I have some concerns about their offense once you get into the playoffs, but defensively, they're just going to grate on you. They're going to be the more physical, more tough team. You know, I think Lowry and Tucker, as much as I make fun of like the Heat culture, they're both going to fit into, they're going to buy into that.
Oh,
whatever
for sure.
that means, you know. So like this team, I actually do think they're probably now the third best team in the East. I would put them, I agree, not quite on the level of the Nets and the Bucks, but I think now they match up pretty well with both teams. I think,
right.
You know, like having Tucker, I know he's pretty much a zero on offense, but we saw what he did against KD in the playoffs. Well, you know, against Giannis as well, he can now be a Middleton if they end up matching up against one of those teams. I mean, Jimmy is still Jimmy. Bam will probably get the Giannis matchup, I guess. But like, they are very versatile, switchable defensively, and now Lowry adds some nice offensive punch. As you said, Jimmy can operate off the ball, and he's, you know, great as a slasher and a cutter as well. Like he's such a bad 3-point shooter at this point that, you know, you're not asking Jimmy Butler to pull up for 3. Lowry at least is a high volume 3-point shooter, so he is going to add some shooting to that lineup. But otherwise, you know, again, offense I think is the concern for them in the playoffs. When you have Bam, who's a relative non-shooter, Jimmy will take them but is not a super accurate 3-point shooter, and then Tucker, who you can just leave open in the corner and dare him to, you know, you're not going to change your defense until he hits like 6 in a row, basically.
Right.
You're going to dare him to shoot. So Robinson is going to have guys up in his jersey nonstop in the playoffs, as will Lowry. But I don't know. I think in conjunction and bringing back Dedmon's nice. He's just a nice depth piece.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen the terms of that deal. I can't imagine it's more than a minimum deal, or maybe they use his non-bird rights or something. To
I think I saw it. No, wait a second. That wasn't Dedmon's. That was Gorky Jang. 1 year, 4 million. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So
I assume I would doubt they tapped into I think they probably still have. You know, we'll see what how they broke down his salary. I would guess they still have a little bit of their non-taxpayer MLE left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Heat, once again, despite like not having cap space, end up parlaying it into a star. And Andy Ellsberg, who is their salary cap guy down there, is like, someone needs to pry him away from that goddamn Miami team because he's just too good at his job, man.
No, I mean, I obviously agree that Miami got better. That's not the issue. I think there seems to be a limit, right? A ceiling is probably a better word. I wonder if there is the offensive ceiling. What I would be intrigued about, Bryan, is actually a different lineup than one that includes like PJ Tucker for 35 minutes. I would like to see them go a little bit more offensive. Because like you said, you have some defensive versatility now there with Jimmy, with Bam, with Kyle. What if you move Jimmy up to the 4?
Yeah.
And then you have Duncan Robinson as your 3-man, Tyler Hero coming in as the 2 guard, and then Kyle at the 1. That to me is a way more well-versed offensive defensive unit that can kind of play in a variety of different ways. And then if you really need to go defense, yeah, you can go to PJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I'm sure we'll see a lot of that lineup. Yep. I think that's the thing that works in Miami's favor now is they can play both ways. You know, if you need offense, you go Lowry, shooters, Butler, Bam. If you need defense, like what we saw the Bucks do throughout the playoffs, where they kept PJ in their starting lineup because they wanted him for his defense. They didn't really care about what he provided offensively. You can go that route. Hero's going to come off the bench and be your 6-man microwave guy. Sounds like Kendrick Nunn is out. I just don't think, even with he's restricted, but they are hard capped now because they got Lowry. So I do not expect him to return unless the market totally dries up for him. So depth.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but you said hard cap. How much are they away from the 143? Are they close?
I would think so, because now they have Lowry. I don't know what he'll start at. I would guess probably. Right. I would guess because they're hard capped, they will increase him by 5% every year. So
like 27, 28.
Yeah, probably. Let's see if Spotrac has his estimated. Because it'll be 30 in the second year, so it'd be 28.6. It looks like. So Jimmy's at 36, Bam's at 28, 64, 92.
Yeah.
Plus Robinson at probably 18 million or so.
Right.
That's 110 right there. Hero. So it
adds up quick.
Yeah. I would be surprised if Kendrick Nunn is back. So we'll see how they fill out. They have KZ Okpala still, but otherwise, like they're in ring chaser mode right now, and they're competing with the Lakers and the Nets in particular for those types of guys. But I feel pretty good about their top 6, top 7 right now.
Yeah, I think your projection of them being like the 3rd best team in the East is right on. They seem to be higher than Philly and Boston, at least as it looks right now. But still that small, tiny step below Brooklyn and Milwaukee.
Yeah. Philly's just so hard to project because we don't know what they're doing with Ben Simmons. And Danny Green is still out there right now. Like he hasn't yet to re-sign. The market is drying up. So I'm inclined to think he will be coming back unless he just wants to take a major discount. The Sixers with him are in the same boat as the Bucks with Tucker and the Lakers with Caruso, where they only have his early bird rights, but because he was earning so much last year, like they could pay him basically whatever they want. I think most other teams are limited to the non-taxpayer or taxpayer mid-level at this point. So like there's nothing stopping the Sixers from being like, here's 2 years, $30 million for Danny Green. But until he definitely resigns and until we see what goes on with Ben Simmons, I have trouble projecting the Sixers as being in that tier of contenders.
Agreed.
What do you think, briefly, before we go on, about that Boston Mavericks deal where they take in Josh Richardson into the rest of the TPE from Gordon Hayward? They send out Moses Brown to the Mavericks.
I would have liked it a lot more if they also kept Evan Fournier around.
Yeah, so we'll get to the Knicks in a bit, but what do you think of? I mean, so now they're record-setting Gordon Hayward traded player exception is done. And what they got was 2 months of Evan Fournier and a year of Josh Richardson.
Not great, bub. We're looking at a situation where Josh Richardson, I'm not ruling him out. I'm not ruling out a return to means for him. But I don't ever think he's going to be like this super switchy 46% from downtown / ball handler role that he had in Miami. I don't think that's ever returning to the same extent. And I think the ball is not going to find him a whole lot because obviously Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are high usage guys, as they should be. So for me, it boils down to, can Josh accept a role wherein he becomes a 3-and-D guy and really embraces it? Because it seemed like he really struggled to do that in Dallas specifically. And he wasn't really that great at it in Philly either. This is a moment of truth for Josh Richardson. I mean, the fact that he had to pick that contract up knowing full well that I'm not going to get that amount of money on the open market, that's not a great sign for him moving forward. So he needs to find a way to rehab his value. If he does that this year, good on him. If he doesn't, well, then he's probably one of those tax MLE targets that you can look at moving forward. Yeah.
I think the concept of Josh Richardson is better than Josh Richardson, the player.
Yeah.
Because, he, in theory, on paper, he is that 3-and-D archetype, but he's not great in terms of point of attack defense. That's what the Sixers tried to put him on, and it's not quite his bag. I'd rather see him on two guard, like a Tyler Hero type. I think he's much better off not having to chase guys through a million screens.
Yes.
Not a great 3-point shooter either. He had the 1 year in Miami where he shot 37.8%, but his percentage has come down every year since. 35.7 in 2018-19, 34.1 in Philly, 33.0 last year. He's like the first guy who played next to Luka Doncic has shot worse.
Yeah. That is not a great sign.
I will say this, though. Again, I think Boston now is switchable 1 through 4 as long as they keep Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
And Marcus Smart is there, can be their point of attack guy. So you put, with Tatum and Brown too, you could put Josh Richardson on the 4th best player offensively. They have incredible defenders up and down that lineup. So Boston, I have concerns about their playmaking if they stick with, a Richardson, Smart, Tatum, Brown, Horford. I think the front court is going to have to shoulder most of the playmaking responsibility. They're going to have to kind of invert it. But I think Boston is right back in that mix of, in that tier. I think they're below, as you said, Miami, but I put them right in the tier with Philly right now. I think they are a clear-cut top 6 playoff team. It looks like FanDuel, they're plus 3,500, so they are right along with Atlanta's plus 3,700. My God, I'm gonna make some bets after we get off this call.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be good.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the Mavericks now, because they are the other side of the Moses Brown deal, as I will refer to it in a year when Josh Richardson leaves Boston. And Moses Brown is good. I don't understand why. He's on a super cheap contract for 3 more years. I love that pickup for the Mavericks. They picked up Willie Cauley-Stein's team option as well, so they have a lot of bigs right now. But they re-signed Tim Hardaway Jr. I saw different figures. I think Shams had 4 years, 72. Woj had 4 years, 74. So I'm sure there's just some funny money in terms of incentives, but probably 18, 19 million a year. Also got Reggie Bullock, 3 years, 30.5 million is what I saw reported. So again, this is one where I'm not sure exactly, are they operating over the cap, under the cap? Is that the non-taxpayer mid-level? Or is it the trade exception that they generated from the Josh Richardson deal? Well, again, this is we'll see how the accounting happens, but I like the addition, putting Reggie Bullock and Tim Hardaway Jr. next to Luka.
Yeah, I noticed you wrote Lonzo. This is how sleep deprived we are right now. That you're when Tim Hardaway and Bullock next to Lonzo, spicy. I was like, Lonzo on the Mavs? What's going on?
Yeah, but Luka. Putting 2 shooters like that next to Luka, 2 high volume, accurate 3-point shooters next to Luka. I'm intrigued, especially given the rumors. Goran Dragic went to Toronto, and it sounds like it's still unclear whether they're going to actually keep him or not. But if they don't, it sounds like he really wants to go to Dallas and play with Luka.
Obviously. I mean, they're countrymen.
Yeah. Yeah, but Dragic, Luka, Bullock, THJ, and put I don't care. KP, right. Maxi Kleba, Powell, Moses Brown, any big, whoever, pick your big. That's an incredible lineup.
I think the Mavericks, pending quality coaching, I should add.
Yes.
Which is not a given.
No.
Could make some playoff noise with that roster.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I love the start for them. Yeah. The other, we have to talk about the Suns as well.
Yes. I love their offseason or their free agency period as well. This was great. Can I just take over? Can I talk about them? Look, yeah. So I saw a lot of people react instantaneously to 4 year, 120 million for Chris Paul. What the hell? Yeah. Look, man, I mean, first and foremost, when we saw that number, there's a rule on NBA Twitter. Wait for the details before you react. Always wait for the details. The fact that the fourth year is completely non-guaranteed and the third year is only partially guaranteed. By the way, do you know what the partial guarantee for year 3 is? Because I haven't seen that reported.
I don't think so. Rick Bucher is the one who reported about, I think it was a partial guarantee third year, and then I want to say fourth year team option, right?
I saw it as a 4 year
non-guarantee. Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen either way, but we'll find out.
Right, but the point is, like, the back end of that contract that you and I have talked about so many times on this podcast, just in terms of him signing a long-term contract, that it could get ugly in the last year or so. Mm-hmm. The fourth year, if that's fully non-guaranteed, or if it's a team option, either way, like, you can just remove him. If by year 3 he looks completely done, you can even just say, oh, you know what, we'll release you and then we'll just pay you whatever is owed on that third year, and then we'll owe you diddly squat for year 4. Yep. This is fantastic value for both sides. Like, he's still going to get paid in year 1 and 2. Like, absolutely. And if he's still affected by year 3, he's gonna get paid there as well. And if he's still productive in year 4 as well, you know what? They'll pay him that money. Like, it's such a solid deal for both parties. And then, Bryan, they followed that up by signing Campaign to 3 years, $19 million. That is such a freaking steal. I mean, when I saw that, I thought someone had mistyped. I really did. I thought someone was supposed to mean like 3 years, $29 million. I thought they just hit the wrong key, but no, everyone started reporting it. 3 years, $19 million. The Suns cleaned up, and then they also signed JaVale McGee for 1 year, $5 million, which is awesome. But I mean, man, Bryan, that's a hell of a start to free agency for the defending Western Conference champs.
Yeah, I think they might be the 2-time defending Western Conference champions.
They might
talk about them next year because, as you said, the CP3. We'll see how the details shake out. What the guarantees are on years 3 and 4. I'm also curious to see whether they have that contract descending instead of ascending because, once the Ayton and Mikal Bridges extensions kick in, they're going to be well into the luxury tax next year. So it would be, if they could do it such that they stay under the tax this year, but can still decrease CP3's payments in the following years, it's only going to help once they get that insanely expensive. But yeah, you were up 2-0 in the finals. You had to run this thing back. Campaign, most really good backup point guards, D'Anthony Melton, Monte Morris, that type of thing, get like $8 to $9 million a year. I think even Tyus Jones is around $8 or $9 million a year. So Campaign at less than 7, like 6.3 a year, phenomenal value for them.
Absolutely.
And then JaVale McGee, was it probably a little bit of an overpay? Yeah. Most likely, but with Dario having torn his ACL, they're going to need a reliable backup center. I don't think they feel like Jalen Smith is ready for that role yet. JaVale is a champion and he could just be a minutes eater. So, pair him with an elite point guard like Chris Paul, or even with someone like Campaign too. Like, you can have a nice little pick and roll game off the bench with Cam Payne and JaVale McGee. So if I had to pick right now, I'm picking the Phoenix Suns to come out of the West next year too, I think.
Let's just take a moment to realize what you just said and how this is a reality that we live in right now. You just said, oh, there's going to be a nice little pick and roll off the bench with Cam Payne and JaVale McGee. I really feel good about their chances of returning to the NBA Finals. This is where we are. This is the weirdness of 2021, which is fantastic. I love it. Let more of it. But that sentence, if you had said that 3 years ago, my God.
When Cam Payne was heading to China, you mean? Like
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's a testament. We sung Cam Payne's praises enough throughout the playoffs, but it is a testament to him for how hard he's worked. And how dare you disrespect JaVale McGee, 3-time NBA champion?
This is true. It might be exactly what they need.
Yeah, we'll see. So I loved the offseason for those. And then the Hawks, you brought them up earlier, so let's just hit them briefly now. Gorgui Dieng, I feel like, was one of the best backup big targets on the market. Getting him at 1 year, $4 million. It's similar to what Phoenix did with McGee, where Onyeka Okongwu has the shoulder injury. He's going to be out for, I think, 6 months, so he's going to miss a decent chunk of the regular season next year. You bring in Dieng behind Clint Capella. Now you're set in the in the front court. Also, John Collins' market is drying up very, very quickly. Like the Knicks are out of space. The Pelicans are out of realistic space. I don't know if they would have been interested in him anyway. But now it's basically like the Spurs have space, the Thunder have space. I think those are the only teams that have enough space to really throw him a big offer.
Yeah.
So Atlanta could end up, he turned down 4 years, $90 million before the start of last season. And heading into free agency, I think on Sunday when we recorded, we were saying, John Collins' contract is going to be a front runner for worst contract of free agency if he gets anywhere close to a max. I don't know that he's getting that contract. He might have to either do the qualifying offer if he's, not satisfied with that, or maybe the Hawks reward him for how important he was in their run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe they're like, all right, we'll give you 4 years, $100 million because we feel bad.
Where he averaged 13.9 points per game.
Yeah, I see. That's the thing too. Like they might be okay with him taking the qualifying offer.
Yeah,
it's a rough. The market is not shaping up well for John Collins, but that only goes to the Hawks' favor.
Right. Except I wouldn't offer him the same deal. I would not.
You wouldn't offer him you wouldn't do $490 anymore.
I would squeeze the living crap out of this.
Oh. I mean, from a cap management standpoint, I agree.
Yeah, I understand there's a personal relationship, reputation, agent angle. I get it, but man, I still wouldn't. Look, this is my future right here. I want to make sure that I have everything tailored around Trae Young. I want to make sure that everything is moving right. I want to make sure that the supporting staff isn't grotesquely overpaid. And that comes down to also not overpaying for John Collins. There's a reason he's available. So when we did a segment on the Hawks, we put that on YouTube, and the comments they got flooded with hatred by very passionate Hawks fans who are very high on John Collins. And look, everyone was like, hey, he'll show you, he'll get a max on day one. Day one has passed, gentlemen. And that offer is not there.
Yeah.
For a reason. A reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting that with Collins on the market and Kawhi still hasn't re-signed with the Clippers. And none of these teams even bothered to wait. They're just, for Kawhi, the Knicks in past years would have done absolutely nothing until Kawhi re-signs. And, even Kawhi was sending signals through Chris Haynes that he was willing to meet with other teams. But I wonder if that Ramona Shelburne story came out, yesterday where it was like he met with Russ and then, went behind his back and called Paul George. I wonder if like teams read that story and were like, oh no, we're not going to tell you what we're up to. Piss off, Kawhi. We're not even going to take this meeting.
This is why he's so quiet. This is just like, he's just so sneaky. Yeah. It's smart.